fraternity decided it'd be fun to all show up the opening night at the Fox Theater and make fun of me. It was quite an experience to see it with a full house, because I'd only seen it, I hadn't watched Friday the 13th before I did it. And then I hadn't seen part 4, so I had to go into Paramount and ask them to screen it for me so I could see who I was playing. And I thought I'd be very cool. I was a method actor, so I went by myself in my trench coat and, sat in the front row in the dark. And by about 5 minutes in, I was in the back in the light, because the music was like frightening, terrifying. When you watch it by yourself, it's not as fun. So, it was a good experience. So.
You mentioned being a method actor, so what was some of the stuff that you kind of had to do to kind of get into this role? Especially when you're playing the older version of somebody you only met as a kid.
So I came out to California and I was always cast as boy next door, an all-American boy, a nice kid. So this was, when I got this script and read it, it was, they don't tell you what it was. I didn't know it was a Friday the 13th. I didn't know, it was just called repetition. They don't give you the whole script, they just give you what are called the sides, right? So I just had a few scenes. And he's a character coming out of an insane asylum. And he has no lines, but he's the lead in the movie. I'm like, wow, this sounds really cool. But I actually am more outgoing, and I've done, Laverne and Shirley and been on TV shows. So this was like my chance to be, I'm gonna be Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird. That's how Robert Duvall started. I'm like, I'm Duvall. I'm gonna go in character. I'm gonna own this role. Well, then when I got cast and found out it was a Friday the 13th, I was like, I always told my friends back home I'd never do a horror. I'd never do a slasher picture, and I certainly would never do a cheesy religious film, like a Christian film. You want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. So first film I get, Friday the 13th. But to answer your question, how did I prepare? I decided, because a bunch of buddies of mine were directors and actors. They're like, if you're going to do this, you got to really commit to it, because nobody will take you seriously if you go and you're friendly to everybody on the set. They're never going to believe you as a psycho serial killer. You got to go in character. When I was at Strasbourg, so okay, now I'm De Niro, now I'm Al Pacino. And then a buddy of mine who's a writer named Mike Hitchcock, who's written a number of horror films, and also he directed Glee, and he's in a show now. He's done a bunch of Christopher Guest movies. Very talented writer and a fraternity brother. He said, what you should do? If you're gonna play a kid coming out of an insane asylum, you should go volunteer at Camarillo State Mental Hospital and see what it's like. So for, at least a month before the show started, I was a volunteer working with young kids at the state hospital up in Camarillo, which is now Channel Islands College. But it was really humbling and also really cool, because I got to know these kids, but they had a lot of problems, abuse problems, and I felt bad when I had to leave, because they were like, why are you leaving? Why are you leaving us? And I couldn't say, I was just here preparing for a movie. But when I went to do the film, I decided I'm just not going to talk to anybody, because the minute they get to know me, it'll take away the mystique, and they won't be scared of me. So I didn't talk to anybody for probably the first 2.5 weeks. If they asked me a question, it would be yeah, no. I wouldn't look them in the eye. I stayed in character. Everybody thought it was, you probably read this if you know about the movie. Everybody thought it was a little weird, which I was trying to be. And I took it very seriously until I had to work with Dick Warlock. So you heard that story? So there's a scene where I have to pick up the kid in the halfway house and flip him on the table, right? And Dick Warlock is the stunt coordinator, and he's the nicest guy in the world. So he's asking me all the questions. Where are you from? How you doing? How'd you get in the business? And I just don't answer. I'm just kind of like, didn't talk to him. But he was so nice. He said, look, when you're going to flip Eddie, and my stunt double's name was Eddie Finstein, also goes by Eddie Matthews. He was a stand-in here. He goes, when you pick up Eddie, you grab him by the belt and you lift him. He'll jump, but he's going to go straight up, like almost do a handstand. And just don't worry about him. Just crashing down as hard as you can and beat him. And I was like, wow, I'm going to hurt this guy, And he was a pretty big guy, because he was doubling the actor. Anyway, Dick was so nice. I said one thing, and I blew my whole cover. I said, where are you from? Because I didn't want to tell him where I was from. Glen Ellen, Illinois, Midwestern kid, farm boy. I said, where are you from? He said, I'm from Arizona. Eddie here. Eddie and I are both from Arizona. Eddie and I are both Christians. We come to the set, and we like to be light on set. We like to minister to all these people on the horror film. And, I come up here with Eddie, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I said, I'm a Christian too. He said, what? I said, yeah, I'm a Christian. He goes, hey, Eddie, this dude's a brother in Christ! Across the whole set, in front of all these actors that already thought I was really weird, and the director, and of course, then my cover was blown and I could no longer be quiet. I had to actually engage with people when they talk. Are you really like a effing Christian? Like, what are you doing on a horror set? So it was really an interesting, great time. But I think the cast was actually so good, and everybody did give me distance and let me prepare it. And I really did take it very seriously, listened to a lot of music, stayed in my character the whole time. And it's only later now that I got to see, oh, it was really fun. And Shavar and Melanie and Miguel, and I watch it now. I didn't want to see anybody else's part because I was just Tommy, and I'm only in these scenes, and I know at the end I'm going to kill Jason. But even tonight I forgot that, oh, Shavar's the one who pushes him off. Yeah. And I'm like, I've always told other people for years I killed Jason. And then, oh yeah, no, I do. I get up and cut off his arm. So.
I think you mentioned because when they first wrote the movie, Tommy did have a lot of lines, but they kind of started weeding that out as they were developing. So by the time you got it, they'd already gotten rid of all that.
I had so few lines in that film, and what was interesting was Danny Steinman at the end. They hadn't quite figured out the ending. They had it all the way up to the hospital room where I have a dream and I wake up and stab her in the stomach, and I was like, I don't want to be the killer. I'm the good guy. I'm playing the good guy. And then you say, well, we're trying to figure out how you carry on because we're going to do a part 6. I'm like, wow. So Michael Hitchcock and I, again, this fraternity brother who, what is the show now he's on? Nobody Gets It. Nobody Wants This. Nobody Wants This. And he was also in Best in Show, if you ever saw Christopher Guest with the dog thing. He's Parker Posey's husband. He's got braces. He's always a really funny guy. So he said to me, let's come up with the ending. They don't have the ending. I said, all right, well, what do we, so we had, back in those days, you're printing out a little onion roll of paper. And so I typed the script up, the last 3 pages, and I gave myself a ton of lines. And I basically, Pam knocks on the door, and I say, don't come in here. And she's like, Tommy? And I'm like, don't come in here. And it was this whole back and forth thing that I had like more lines on the last 2 pages of the whole script. And then we came up with the idea that I throw a chair through the window and she hears the crash and comes in and I'm behind the door, which I didn't really want to become possessed, but they wanted me to become Jason. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, then this is the way to do it. So Michael and I wrote that, and I gave it to Danny, and he looked through it. He goes, what are all these numbers you typed in the side? I said, well, look, I don't know how to write a script, but I just took the numbers off because those are scene numbers. You can't just throw them in. They actually correspond to scenes. And he said, and you wrote yourself, there's all these, you don't talk the whole movie, and now you have these monologue. So they cut through, but what was really cool was they printed the script, and that was our ending. And years later, I asked Danny about it. He goes, you didn't come up with that. That was our idea. Michael and I know, I have what I wrote back in the day, but yeah, I tried. I'm not a great writer, but that worked. And then I thought, oh, Michael and I'll write the next one. And then as it developed, they wanted it to go into part 6. And has anybody seen it? Have you all seen part 6? Yeah. So it's like a different character. So all of a sudden he's a nice guy again. I was like, oh, I'm not. I'd had a kind of an awakening during that movie. Like I didn't come out here to do horror films. I'd never seen one. But now I have an appreciation looking back 40 years later. Wow, this brand, this franchise was kind of an honor to be a part of. And at the time, I didn't appreciate it. I was just like, I'm Duvall, I'm Pacino, I'm De Niro. I'm not Boy Next Door, I'm not John Ritter. But that's what I kept getting cast as. So. But it was a great launching pad for me. And it was also kind of a new beginning because here I came out to LA and I said, to all my buddies in high school, I'll never do a slasher picture, I'm not doing nudity, and I'll never do a lame, cheesy Christian film. So, so I quit the business after Friday the 13th Part 5 because I decided, as an actor, you're always asking permission to do your job. Can you please hire me? Can you please put me in your movie? You have no control unless you're Leonardo DiCaprio or Pacino or somebody, and I wasn't going to be them. So I thought, well, I can't do this business. They offered me Friday the 13th Part 6. I was like, I feel I'm better than this. I got to do something. So I actually quit the business and I went to seminary. Some of you might know this story. So sorry if I'm boring you, but it was kind of like this weird, well, I love communicating. I love speaking. I don't like people very much, but I love to hear myself talk. I'll go to seminary, I'll be a minister. And while I was at a seminary where you had to sign a piece of paper saying you wouldn't go to R-rated films. And Friday the 13th was playing in the drive-in across the street. Nobody knew I was an actor. And while I was there, I went to church on Sunday, and a guy came up and he goes, "You're an actor, right?" And I said, "No, I'm going to be a minister now. I got out of the business. It's just, I can't control the parts I get, and I want to do, To Kill a Mockingbird, but I keep getting offered, whatever." And he said, "I just read for a movie you'd be perfect for. I bet you get it. I bet you get, I won't get it, I'll bet you get it," which I thought was really weird for an actor to tell another actor about a part he's up for. That's very competitive, right? They don't do that. So I called in 1986 to a little studio called Worldwide, and I got the lead role in a film that took me to Amsterdam. And it was a lame, cheesy Christian film. And I said, "Okay,